Hi, welcome to the Cryptid Wilderness Research Podcast. I am CWR team member Daniel Becker up here in Anchorage, Alaska, staring into the Arctic abyss, the frozen Arctic abyss. It's about 2 degrees up here today. And joining me, as always, from Quincy, Washington, my partner, Matt Slater.
Hello.
Matt, give us an update about the extreme weather in Washington.
This is my first time dealing with extreme weather like this, living down here, and it has been crazy. Like over here in Quincy, east side of Washington, central Washington, it really hasn't been that bad for us. We've had a couple days of really high winds, but we only have some like missing roof shingles and some tumbleweeds piled up. But down Yakima and Natchez in that area down south of me, they've got highways washed out, they've got bridges washed out, there's people trapped, they're doing rooftop rescues, and you got helicopter teams and swiftwater rescue teams out there. Over on the west side, you've got whole towns flooded out, like bridges gone, all the mountain passes are closed with mudslides. It's been pretty crazy.
Yeah, I've seen some of the videos on social media, and I was really surprised how bad it was.
Yeah.
So glad that the weather is starting to improve.
I think it is.
So today we have with us from Boone County Cryptids, Wyatt Estes. So we're going to bring him on and head back down south where our main base of operations are with our partners down there, William Lunsford and Stephen Hill. And I always love talking to researchers in the South because, to me, that's where Bigfoot Central is.
Yeah.
A lot of people think about the Pacific Northwest and California and all that. And that's, obviously high on the map too. But for me, the Southern United States is, as we say, the Amazon of America and Bigfoot Central. So let's bring Wyatt in.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Wyatt, welcome to CWR Podcast. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. So tell us about how you got into all this. Tell us about yourself and what brought you into this cryptozoology field.
Well, my name's Wyatt Estes. I grew up here in Arkansas. I live in a little town called Harrison. It's in north central Arkansas. I grew up in a little town called Kingston, Arkansas. And I lived about 10 or 12 miles out on a dirt road. And you can imagine. And a lot of this was canopied. There's a lot of canopy driving through there, so it's covered with trees. So, you get to thinking about it, you can only imagine what kind of, cryptid activity could exist in the vast wilderness that was out there. And it was real close to the Ozarks National Forest here in Arkansas. But I would say my first, traipse down the Bigfoot pathway, I guess, would be when I got home from school one day when I was about 10 years old. I got home. I can't remember if I made it home first or my grandpa got there afterwards. But anyway, my grandpa was at the house at one point in time that day. And he told me he seen a Bigfoot walk across the dirt road. And this would have been about 1.5 miles from where I grew up. So it wasn't very far away from me. So that kind of, I guess that's probably what piqued my curiosity at a young age. And from there, I started, as a teenager and young adult, I started watching all the shows that, they had on TV. So that piqued my curiosity even more. It wasn't until I was, in my 30s that I actually started having experiences. But so I would say that's how I got involved in it, Daniel and Matt.
So your region, you do research there in Missouri and Arkansas. Yeah. And tell us about the landscape in your section.
Well, we got a lot of rolling hills, and we're in the Ozark Mountains. A lot of people don't consider them mountains, but the Ozarks are actually older than the Rocky Mountains are by a lot. The Ozarks are over 1 billion years old, and I believe the Rockies are just a few billion years old. I don't know the exact numbers, but the Ozarks are quite a bit older, and I believe that's probably why they're worn down more, so they're not as tall as the Rockies are. But we've got, hills. We got vast forest out here. the Ozark National Forest itself is over, I think, 1.2 million acres, and that's just in southern. I think the Ozarks the Ozark Mountains. They even go into Illinois, but they're in Illinois, Missouri, and Arkansas, and I think a little bit into Oklahoma, if I remember right. And then we've got a lot of man-made lakes around here. We've got the Buffalo National River real close to us, and it was actually America's first national river that they deemed a national river. So yeah, we've got a lot of wilderness around here.
So are there a lot of stories in the area about Sasquatch? I know that down around the Texarkana area where our main base of operations is in Arkansas, people down there seem to talk about it a little. It's like they were raised on it, obviously with the legend of Boggy Creek, and they seem a bit more open to talking about Bigfoot, unlike in the north. But
Right.
What's it like around where you live?
I mean, it's not hard to talk about it around here. I mean, of course, I've gotten used to it. I'll talk about Bigfoot to anybody. And I'm sure there's encounter stories. There's encounter stories around North Arkansas and, a lot of places. Southern Missouri. You can look on some of the, the sightings websites and stuff, and I'm sure you'll find quite a few, probably more in Southern Missouri than Northern Arkansas. But I've heard a lot of stories coming out of Northern Arkansas.
So tell us about the start of your research and when you came across your first track and tree break. Bring us down that road.
All right. My first encounter, it actually happened out in the Ozark National Forest, near a place called Cave Mountain. You get to Cave Mountain by turning by a little town called Boxley, Arkansas. You go about 12 miles out on the dirt road out that way, and you'll get to where we have a deer camp at. And so it was about November of 2021, I believe. And I was up at the place that I hunt. And it's down below a big fire tower. What a fire tower is, back in the day, the Park Service would, or the Rangers or whatever, they would have people man these fire towers, and they would go up in the top and they would look for smoke. And there was a lot of acreage saved by having these fire towers out there. It was kind of like the early warning system of the day. My uncle actually manned that fire tower out there where we had deer camp for years. They actually had a little house sitting there. Anyway, I like to hunt down below there because I've taken lots of deer down there. And so in November of 2021, and the weird part about this first experience was, before I even walked down into the woods, there was this group of guys that were up there at the fire tower. They came up there after I got there, and they were asking if I'd seen their friend. They said, I guess he'd walked out of camp that morning and they hadn't seen him since. I'm like, no, I hadn't seen him. And, they didn't ask to help me look for him or anything like that. And I'm 99% sure nothing ever happened to that, because I was there that weekend. It was just memorable to me because I had a Bigfoot experience right after it. I was out there that weekend and nobody ever reported anybody missing, so I'm sure he probably came back into camp that night. But as I was walking down the hill to get to where I hunt, I started hearing what I can only describe as wood knocks. Now it wasn't real, crisp. It was more like a softer wood on wood. But I'd say this went on for 10 or 15 minutes. And so I'm like, I went ahead and I went down there and I sat beside a tree. Sat beside the tree I always sat by. That was my stand, sitting on the ground. And so I'm sitting there and it stopped. I yelled out there when I first started hearing. I'm like, is anybody out there? Because if it was that guy, maybe somebody was, knocking on a tree to get found or whatever. I never got an answer. But I've also I talk to people, and the universal sign of being lost in the deer woods is to fire 3 shots in the air to let them know where you're at. So I went and sat where I normally sit. A little bit later, my buddy, he came walking up from kind of the same direction I was hearing the knocks, and he knows that forest like the back of his hand. He's a lot better at navigating than I am. But he came and sat beside me. And I'm like, well, I just heard this, so I was kind of ecstatic, And I'm like, I told him what happened, and he asked me, well, do you think it was a woodpecker? I'm like, well, I've heard a woodpecker before, and it didn't sound like any woodpecker I'd ever heard. But so yeah, that was my first experience. I tried telling the guys at camp about it, and they're like, well, this, that, and the other. So I don't really even. I won't say it hurt my feelings, but it's kind of like I just had this big experience, and it kind of like brought me down a notch. But yeah, that was my first experience. I've got a lot more experiences before I got to the research. If you want to hear about any of that, so
yeah, tell us.
All right. I guess my next experience it occurred. We have some personal property outside of town, a little community called Bender, Arkansas, and I live in Harrison, but we got the property there. So anyway, I guess it was about April of 2022. We were out morel mushroom hunting on our property. That's a big thing around here. But morel mushrooms are like gold around here. So we were out looking for some of that. And it was me, my wife, my little girl, and her mom and dad. So as we're down here, hunting the mushrooms, I start hearing what I can only describe as what is a baby crying in the woods. And it's at a distance. And I asked my wife if she heard it, and she heard it too. And granted, there are animals in the woods that will sound like a baby crying. But I was talking to her, and I started telling her, well, sometimes a Bigfoot will make the sound of a baby crying in the woods to lure women and children out into the woods, kind of like preying on their maternal instinct. I heard it a couple times. Now, there are surrounding properties around there. Like I always say, I guess somebody could have had a baby outside, and we could just hear it crying from where they were at. It just struck me as odd that day because I had my wife, my little girl, and her mom were all there. And I don't know. I just got the feeling that something. It didn't feel like an animal, just a regular animal encounter to me. It felt like something was making that sound other than a normal animal. I feel it could have possibly been a Sasquatch, but I could be totally wrong too. My next encounter occurred about the same time. This would have been November of the same year, November of 2022. I was deer hunting over there. And I sat down in this little valley. And I was sitting up against a little tree, just waiting for a deer to come by. And I heard something growl at me. It wasn't real loud, but I felt like whatever it was meant business. It was like, "Ruh." So I'm like, okay, I'll get up. I got up and I walked around and went to the other side of the property. And I walked down in the woods there just a little bit. And something growled at me again. So at this time, I'm thinking, well, there's either something following me or there's two of something. So when I heard the second one, just a little bit after it, I hear something and catch something out of the corner of my eye drop to the ground. And I think it was probably just me being a little spooked. It was probably a squirrel, but whatever it was, it looked black when it dropped to the ground because I just caught it out of the corner of my eye. But I also got to thinking, I've heard that they can spider crawl. And so I was wondering if something was real low to the ground and just shot off. More than likely, that part was a squirrel. But what growled at me, I don't know. I've looked up bobcat sounds and stuff like that, big cat sounds. Granted, it could have been because I have heard of people seeing big cats out there, but that is not normally a big cat's MO to follow somebody around and growl at them. So I walked down a little bit further. I sat in the woods. After I heard the second growl, I backed out just a little ways out of the woods. I had my boomstick pointing down into the woods, and I was backing out. I didn't leave right away, but like I always say, I wasn't sitting very far down in the woods either after that, which I don't have to go down very far. I don't always go down very far in the woods anyway, because I don't have to, because I've killed a lot of deer just walking down there, sitting in the woods a ways, and because I've got a place that they cross right there. But I got over there. After that, we go back out to the Ozark National Forest where we have deer camp. This time it was in September of 2023. We have what we call squirrel camp out there too. Just like deer season or deer hunting, we just go out there for squirrel season and hunt squirrels. Well, anyway, we're all sitting around the campfire for a while, and we decided it's time to go to bed. My buddy's dad had brought his squirrel dog out there, and that plays more into the story in just a second. Anyway, we go to bed. We get in this little camper that my buddy's dad brings out there. All it is basically it's an old camper that they've modified the inside, and they put a bunch of bunk beds where it can fit a lot of people. So we're all laying there. We go to sleep. About 3 o'clock in the morning, I wake up. My buddy's dad's dog starts barking, and it's almost doing like a semicircle around the camp. I'm thinking, well, that's kind of piqued my curiosity a little bit. I'm laying there. All of a sudden, something starts jiggling the handle of the door of the camper. Like, almost sounded like something's trying to turn the doorknob. I'm thinking, okay. I have my boom, my little boomstick laying on the table over there. My thoughts on that is it takes something with hands to turn a doorknob. And the bad part about this one was this camper did not have a lock on the door. So whatever it was wanted to get in, it could have got in.
Wow.
Wow.
Now there was another camper out there, and there was somebody staying in this camper. But what sense would it make for somebody to start playing with people where there's firearms involved? Especially, of course, I don't know if the other guy knew I had it in the camper or not, but but usually when we go out to these camps, there's lots of firearms, and they're usually readily available. Most of them aren't in the camper, but all you got to do is get out to the truck, and there they are. So I don't think it would have been somebody just messing with us. That same area, I've got a buddy of mine. They thought one time, they thought about it. They didn't do it. They thought about they were going to come out to deer camp and they were going to sneak up on us in deer camp. Then they got to think, he's like, well, we thought about it, but we also knew there was a bunch of, pew-pews in the camp, and we didn't think that was a good idea. Later on that night, whenever, at least I think it was the same night, I guess they had something throw a rock at their four-wheeler on the county road out there, real close to the deer camp. And my buddy said he seen something that had to duck under a 9-foot tree branch just to get underneath it. So there is activity out there.
Let's pull up to some of the pictures that you sent us, and you sent us some really good pictures.
Okay.
So let's work our way through these. We'll start here with this one. Good track picture.
Oh, thank you. My dad actually sent that track to me. He knows I'm pretty interested in this stuff. He found that outside a dumpster by where he works. I won't disclose where he works just for privacy reasons, but Yeah, he found that outside a dumpster. If you zoom in on it, it looks like it's only got 4 toes. But if you zoom in on it, that what looks like the third toe, there's actually 2 toes that are real close together right there.
And that's not unusual to find tracks around dumpsters. We've heard lots of stories about sightings that have taken place of Bigfoot digging in dumpsters. So that's not unusual at all.
Right. He sent that photo of the footprint. He sent that to me, I think, in 2022. About a year later, I started going to the gym here, and somebody told me that, I was wearing a Bigfoot shirt, and he's like, why you always wear that? And I'm like, well, just because. He told me that he had bought his dad a set of those, wooden track shoes that you can make fake tracks with. So that got me thinking, well, what if that was one of those things? But I've talked to other researchers, and they think it's Bigfoot. You can tell it's a lot bigger than everything else around it. And if you look at it, the way the snow's melted right there, something stood there for a good period of time. We call that dwell time. And it actually melted the snow because it was heavier right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was real interesting. He sent that to me, and he's actually had a few of his own encounters. But
Matt, what do you think about that track?
I think it's pretty good. I don't think it's a fake track because of the irregularities with the toes.
right.
Because you're going to make a fake footprint. Why would you make the toes all messed up?
Yeah.
Yeah, great point.
Oh, it just got me thinking, you kind of start second guessing yourself sometimes when people start saying stuff like that. So
Yeah, just as researchers, just go with your gut.
yeah, that's exactly right. That is a piece of deer hide hanging from a tree. We found that at a place called Combs Ferry. It's a shut down campground. I don't know if you've seen the other picture of the bigger deer hide hanging in the tree. We found that on a little expedition we took into that campground in the middle of the night.
Mm.
But we went back during the daytime and seen that one. Around that area, we were finding partial, almost looks like tracks in the wood or on the ground. I didn't put any of those pictures on though because those tracks are hard to see, and it's hard to kind of explain them whenever they're harder to see. But we could tell where something had been walking through there. But
yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
So you said this campground is was it closed down as in not used anymore, or
you can't camp there anymore. It looks like a dadgum nuclear warhead went off in the middle of this campground.
Wow.
Now, just out of curiosity, are there any cemeteries located near this area here?
There's one not too far away.
Because we've heard reports of Bigfoot being in the vicinity of cemeteries too. Just one of the things we hear sometimes.
But now this is a track that we found after we took said expedition. Now, me and my buddy Richard, we had launched the boat at a different area that we went and picked these guys up at. And after we got done, we came back. We got back to the boat ramp. And we found this right there close to where we put the boat in. I don't know what it is. It looks like a track to me. And I've had other people say it looks like a track. So
yeah,
you can see the big toe up there at the right hand corner, and other toe looks like the other toe. And you couldn't see the individual toes, but something heavy had stepped there.
And you said this is along a waterway?
It's on the right beside a boat ramp where we launched the boat at Table Rock Lake.
Nice.
That I'm not 100% sure. That may be a partial, or that could be a human boot print. I just took pictures. I wanted to document it. when you were looking at it closer and not taking pictures of it, you could almost see what might have been a toe, but and some of the parcels that I sent there, that one was the definitive track, in my opinion.
But when you're out there doing research in the field, you're going to find all kinds of things, and it's worthwhile to document everything that you find.
Right.
Researchers got to remember that. Even though you don't think it's something, still take a picture of it.
Well, I mean, that was something heavy there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Honestly, that one I don't know. It could be a partial, but it could be a human. But I think the other one, I'm almost 99% certain that was a Bigfoot track.
Yeah, it was about the same size as the one track that I found.
Is it? Now, we found that track at a place we called Three Fields down here in northern Arkansas. We like to go out there and look for tracks and stuff like that. My buddy, actually in this same spot, he's heard wood knocks there before, and this is also the same area where I believe we smelled a creature of some sort. I walked by the area, and it smelled like chicken poop when we walked by there. Then when we walked by in the same exact area, it smelled like wet dog. And I was talking to one of my buddies. He's like, well, you could have had one watching you right there, and you just couldn't see it around the area. It could have been in the area. But this is actually the same area where I had what I believe was a partial sighting. We were going back in there to put a deer stand up. This is in the third field, the very back field. So we couldn't find a good place to put it back in there. So as we're walking out, my buddy Richard, he's my research partner, and his son, they were ahead of me. And when they were walking out, I heard something bust the brush off to our right. And when I heard that, I looked over, and it's so thick out there you couldn't hardly see through there. But I caught something just like into a little opening. I seen something moving across there after I heard the brush break, and it moved so smoothly across there that it almost had to have been on two legs. And I'll always say I'm not 100% going to say any of this is Bigfoot because it wasn't a full-blown sighting. But yeah, I seen something walk across there, and it was just so smooth. And it was pretty sure it was black in color, but it just walked across there. But that's my partial sighting that I've had, and it was in this area. I put a little tape measure on this track, and I put it in two different areas because I wasn't sure really where to measure it from. I believe one area it read 16 inches, and then I put it in a different area and it was 14. But so one of those is correct. I don't know which one. You can tell it kind of curves, and from what I've been hearing, they kind of think that the females are the ones with the curved tracks, and the males are the ones with the straighter tracks. But yeah, that was the track we found there. It was just out in the middle of the field.
Good pick.
Thank you. Now this is a bear area we found in one of the coves out on Table Rock Lake. We actually had to get out of the boat and go up on the bank a little ways, and there's this overhang. And what we're thinking is something's moved. You can tell something's moved all these rocks and stuff out of that area, and almost like to lay there or take shelter from something. Don't 100% know what it is. I would think if a human was taking shelter there for any length of time, you would find the remnants of a campfire or something like that. But it's just two pretty good sized areas where something had been taking shelter there. and it's not very far from where we research at. We've had a lot of activity out there.
So this is up a slope. Is that what you're saying? It's kind of up.
Yeah, you got to get out. We had to get out the boat and walk up the hill just a little ways, and then we seen this outcropping, this overhang. Excuse me.
Oh, copy.
We walked in there and we found those bare spots like that. Earlier in the day, not too far from this, we found a 19-inch track.
That's a big one.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't the best defined track in the world, but if you got down and looked at it, I sent the pictures in. I don't know if you have those or not, but if you got down and looked at it, you could kind of see toe impressions. My buddy has an app on his phone where you can place the marker in one area and drag it, and it'll give you pretty exact measurements. And it was right at 19 inches.
That's a big footprint.
Yeah. And that we found that track where I probably had my most scary encounter that I've had, or where we heard the scariest thing that I've ever heard. We were back in there one night, and we went into this cove. We've got the audio recorder running and stuff, and we come back out of this cove, and we're about to go to a different area. And all of a sudden, we hear something back out in the woods. And man, I don't know what it was, and it scared me. It instilled a primal fear in me. It wasn't just a regular, oh, I'm scared. Later that night, we started having more activity. And I'm not trying to sound like a baby. I actually had tears coming down my face. I didn't know if we were going to make it out of there that night, because we were just hearing the most, haunting noises that I've ever really heard in my life. But that noise, it sounded, my buddy, he akins it to the Blair Witch Project, where you hear the witch screaming out in the woods. I don't know what it was, but whatever it was, it instilled a little bit of fear in me. And I did not like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have either. I've heard one Bigfoot scream down there in Arkansas, and the vocalization that I heard was, I've heard the whoops and things like that. I've heard the other noises, but when you actually hear something scream out there and it shakes you, it's a life-changing moment. It's something, we hear other people talk about having experienced loud vocalizations, and it shakes you,
Yeah. This was quite a ways away, but it was the route where we found that it was back in there where we found that 19-inch track, because we went back after we'd heard that. We went back a few days later and went back in the same area, and that's where we found the track. But I've looked up fox sounds and stuff like that. I guess possibly it could have been a fox screaming back in there, but with finding that track back in there, I think it was a cryptid of some sort. I don't think a fox scream would have just put dread in me, because I've got that on audio recorder, but it didn't pick up that sound like I wanted it to. I've got a lot of audio, and it picks up way better than what that did. You can listen to it where we know it occurred in the audio, and you can just hear it peak just a little bit. So I've got to get that on one of my programs that I have and see if I can extract the sound out of that. But something was back in there, and it scared me that night. This is what I believe to be some tree manipulation out where I go to deer camp out.
Yeah, I find a lot of these up here as well. Yeah.
The funny thing about this was, all those trees were bowed down. They're kind of interwoven, but I don't know if you put the picture in there. I had a picture kind of zoomed in of a little branch hanging out like this, a little broken off branch. The tip of one of these bowed trees was tucked underneath that branch, and that was the only thing holding those trees where they were at. And that's the same area where I heard the wood knocks, where I had my first encounter. It would have been 4 years later.
Sometimes when we post pictures of tree breaks we've discovered and tree manipulations, you get all the trolls coming out there. But as researchers, we say that any good researcher is always their first skeptic. So you always have to be your first skeptic. So what we do is when we find a tree break or tree manipulation like this, we immediately start going through a checklist, if you will, of could this have been caused by natural phenomenon? Could it be caused by wind, snow weight, especially up here, snow weight, and different things. But when you find these in an area that there has been activity, and especially areas that they start standing out to you.
Yeah, I agree. I looked to see if there was like any logs pinning this stuff down, and the only thing I could find in that little section right there was they were pinned underneath that little limb. They've been bowed down and pinned under that limb, and that looked like the only thing that was holding them down. That's a tree break. It was a good 10 feet off the ground at least. It's right there in that same area.
Yeah, that one's way up there.
Yeah. I'm not saying wind couldn't have done that. I guess wind could have caused that. I had another one, a smaller one in that same area. I can't remember. It may have been just in front of that one. But yeah, I just thought it was, like you said, document everything. So I took a picture of that just to be safe.
Yeah. And another thing that stands out to me, and I think Dan was talking about this earlier too, is you look in the background of the photo, and sure, there's sticks and limbs and stuff on the ground, but there's no other trees broken.
Yeah.
It's just this one.
Yeah, Matt and I refer to these as I should say Matt, Steven, and William and I refer to these as standalone breaks. And the standalone breaks are the ones that if you've got activity in an area and you come across a standalone break, I'm not saying every time, but more likely than not, we believe it was left by a Sasquatch. Now, what do you think? Now, there's a lot of opinions about tree breaks and why Sasquatch do these things. What do you think is the reason?
I think they could be marking territory. Just like an area that they've had something happen or an area that they come back to. Like I said, there was this one, and I did find another one real close to that, but it was, just a singular tree broken over. I think they use it kind of as territorial markers, maybe. I don't know that. I don't know for a fact, but that's kind of my opinion.
Yeah.
I found that when I was deer hunting again. You have one experience, one place, and you go back there again, you automatically kind of start looking for things after you've had an experience, and I was able to find that.
Matt, what do you think about tree breaks, and what's your theory about why Sasquatch do these things?
I'm kind of in agreement. I think it's a territorial thing. Maybe a little bit, it could be like a directional thing, but I think primarily it's kind of a territory marker.
And I'll agree with both of you. And the thing that we hear the most is territorial markers, and like you said, Matt, directional.
All right.
Those seem to be the two big theories.
That makes sense to me.
Good find.
Thank you.
Let's see, we got one more.
That's some more what I believe to be manipulation. It was pretty close to that Actually, I think you can see a limb broke there. That may be close to where that smaller tree break was. But yeah, that's just kind of more bowed over trees. That's how I really know to explain it.
Yeah.
Whether that one's actually manipulation or not, I don't really know. But I mean, it was in the same general area as the other one that I'd found earlier.
Yeah. And what gets me with this one is, it's fully bowed over, not sharp enough to break it. And then at the very end, you follow it over to the right. It seems to be just lightly tied in over there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to look at it. Sorry, I'm doing this on my phone, so I can't hardly see it. But yeah, I agree with you. That's kind of what it looks like.
Yeah, another good find. Another good find. And probably the tree breaks and the tree manipulation is so far, at least in our immediate vicinity areas up here, those are the things that we see the most.
Okay.
So Wyatt, everybody's got their own theories about what they think a Bigfoot is. Some are on the North American primate side of the house, some are on the woo side of the house, extraterrestrial, Nephilim connection. Lots of theories out there about what a Bigfoot could be. So I'm going to ask you, what is your theory? What do you think these creatures could be?
Well, as I had one of my guests say one time, that's the $64,000 question. That's a tough question, really, because you hear so many different encounters with so many different varieties. And I'm not discounting any of it at all. But I mean, you hear of them just being flesh and blood. You hear that they can bleed. There are stories of them being shot and killed. There's also stories of them walking in and out of portals. There's stories of them vanishing. My opinion is I do believe that they are flesh and blood when they're flesh and blood, and when they're not, they're not. I think they're basically a flesh and blood creature that has supernatural abilities. And I think you've heard of them cloaking and stuff.
Yep.
A lot of our encounters, it's usually just audio. Audible. We'll hear something, and you shine your light over there. There's nothing there. I mean, this is not very far away at all. We've had them. Okay, I'll give one example. I'll give a few examples since we're still here. So we're back out on Table Rock one time, and we get back into one of our normal coves, and we got up to this power line right away. It crosses the lake and it goes across, and I've just now heard about people saying there's a lot of activity around power lines, and coincidentally, that's where we have a lot of activity is right near that power line.
We constantly, sorry to interrupt. We constantly hear stories about power lines. It's one of those consistencies that we've heard: power lines and gas lines.
Really? Okay. So I hadn't really paid attention to that aspect of it until I heard it. Then I started putting two and two together, and I realized that's where the majority of our stuff happens is near a power line. Anyway, we get to this power line, and I'm shining our spotlight. I'm shining it up the hill. Excuse me. And this light just goes dead. I mean, graveyard dead. And so we back out of there. And as we've got the boat turned around going the other direction, we hear this whistle. And I'm talking, I don't know what made this whistle, but it was way too loud to be any human that I know of. My buddy, my research partner, Richard, he always says, I can whistle loud. And I couldn't even come close to what that was. But when this whistle started, it started and it just got louder as it went on. And so I'm not going to lie, that kind of scared me a little bit. But 5 minutes or less later, we had a pack of coyotes go off. Right, and it sounded like it was right behind the boat. We're looking over there. I think we shined some sort of light. I can't remember if that spotlight came back on or if we were just using our headlamps. But those coyotes were so close, you should have been able to shine your light over there and see them. I've been told that there's encounters of, Bigfoot using coyotes kind of like to do their bidding and stuff.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know if that's what was happening, but it almost felt like like a Bigfoot had whistled and was calling its dogs in because it sounded like it was so close. That's one area. But to get back to the not being able to see them part, another time in a different cove, we go back in there. It was about 60 degrees. It was in June, and it was 60 degrees at night. So, you wouldn't think you'd get cold at all. But my hands started getting real cold, and we trolled back into this, got back into this cove, and we start hearing the brush. I mean, it just sounds like something's coming alive in these woods. I'm trying to get the light on. Richard's like, get that dang light on, get it on. I'm like, I'm trying. Finally get it on. And we've got what sounds like the brush just popping all over the place. Shine it over there, and you can't see nothing. And the brush didn't even look like it was moving, but it had to have been moving somewhere because my research partner heard it too. And we were shining over there, and you can't see anything. And one more instance, and then I'll get to my point. We got out there one night, and it was like dead quiet. And at this point, he had on his bass boat. When we're researching, we stay out in these coves in the bass boat. We troll back into these coves, and we sit on the boat. We'll, now that we've got the research equipment, I'll set the audio recorder on the back of the boat, and I'll get the thermal out, and we'll be scanning the trees and stuff. But this particular night was before I had any of the equipment. We got there. It was real quiet. And Richard's like, oh, let's turn the lights on and see if we can get anything going. Because a lot of the times when he would turn those lights on around the boat, that's when we'd start having activity. He flipped the lights on. Took about 5 minutes. And we could hear something walking on the right side of us. Sounded like it was on 2 feet. And we keep trolling. And it keeps following us. We're getting down to this right of way. And we're like, all right, we're going to see it walk across the right of way. Got down there, got to the right of way where it should have crossed. It stopped. We turn back around, and it starts following us back the other way. But to get to the point, we're shining our light on it the whole time, on and off. You should be able to look over there and see a being walking through the forest. In my opinion, I think, and some of the researchers have found hair samples, and they say they have clear hair shafts. And so I'm thinking maybe their clear hair shafts can absorb the light around them. So when you shine a big spotlight on them, what's basically happening is that the clear hair shafts are absorbing the light, and you're not able to see what you're looking at. Because you guys have seen the Freeman footage, right?
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about? Where you see the Bigfoot walking across there, and then it looks like it vanishes. And then it walks. Then you see it walk from that place. It's almost like it absorbed the camouflage around it, or whatever, how you want to put it. That's kind of my opinion on that part. But you have people that say that they can cloak. They walk in and out of portals. They're Nephilim. You get the extraterrestrial part of it. A lot of encounters happen right after somebody sees a UFO. And then there's a Bigfoot encounter. So my opinion is they're flesh and blood when they are, and they're not when they're not. That's the best way I know to describe it. Sorry, that was a long explanation, but
No need for apologies. We enjoy hearing the thoughts and opinions and theories of everybody that comes on, no matter what they are. So, thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh, yeah.
And we're getting close to time, so I want to throw the ball over to Matt and have him bring us home.
Yeah. Well, it's listening to your stories about your encounters. You have a really good research area down there. Like I've listened to the stories that Dan's told me about Arkansas and, the Ozarks. We've heard so much about the Ozarks
Right.
and the national forest there and how dense it is. And we've seen the pictures, and it's just the perfect area. You have like an abundance of deer. You got lots of cover. You've got all the waterways and rivers and lakes just in that whole area. It's just the perfect environment.
Right.
And I think that's going to be a huge hotspot. And you're right there, and you're pretty lucky.
Yeah, we're blessed. And there's a lot of stuff that I didn't even talk about tonight, or today. Excuse me. I work nights, so today's my night. But yeah, I've got a lot of stuff I hadn't even talked about, and I'm not bragging. And I hope it keeps happening. But 90% of the time we go out to these places that we go, we have some sort of activity. And usually it's only vocally. My buddy did think that he may have seen a juvenile out there one of the last times that we went out there, and I've had a partial dogman sighting out in that same area. So there's a lot of stuff out there.
Which is why we need to do a part 2, because we still got a lot of area to cover. So we're hoping that you'll come back and continue your story.
Gladly. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah.
Where can people find you on social media?
On social media, we have a YouTube channel called Boone County Cryptids. And I get asked a lot, is this like Boone County, Kentucky, or Boone County, all the other Boone counties, which I understand that because they're the bigger known Boone counties. But we're actually in Boone County, Arkansas. We have a YouTube channel called Boone County Cryptids. You can just type in Boone County Cryptids, and we should be the first one that pops up. We're also on TikTok, Boone County Cryptids. I'm on Facebook as well.
So what's upcoming for you as far as research goes and conferences you might be going to? What do you got planned for 2026?
Well, I've not actually got to go to a conference yet. I would like to be able to put one of those on my schedule. There's one here in Arkansas that I would like to go to, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of it, but it's down around Little Rock, Arkansas. I would like to go to it. Somebody I know real well, he's supposed to be going there. I'd like to go be able to meet him. I think there's some meet and greets coming up this year. I would like to try to be able to make it to a meet and greet, like a camp out kind of thing. Keep doing research. Of course, it's getting colder down here, so it's kind of hard to be out on the lake when it's real cold. But
right.
That area called Three Fields, we'll be able to go. We like to go there when it snows and look for stuff, and just do more research. My main goal is to have a full-on, definitive, it's right there in front of you sighting.
Yeah.
So I've had partials, but I want the locked in for sure thing.
Absolutely. And like Matt was saying, you're in an amazing area, and you are always welcome to come down to the Texarkana area and come out with us when I go down there, and hopefully get Matt down there too.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
And but you are always welcome to come out with us. I think my next trip is probably going to be May. It was going to be February, but I had to push it back. But
Right.
yeah, you have an open invitation. So
thank you. Well, you're more than welcome to, if you're ever in the area, if you ever want to come up to North Arkansas, we'll try to get you out there too.
Awesome.
Cool.
So hopefully we can get you back on again and review some of the audio that you sent us, and
most definitely
talk about the expedition and some more.
You guys are more than welcome to come on Boone County Cryptids if you want to too. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. No, you're good. Matt,
Yeah.
thank you as always. And So with that, we're going to sign off here. So for myself, Daniel Becker up here in Anchorage, Alaska, my fellow host, Matt Slater in Quincy, Washington, Wyatt Estes from Boone County Cryptids. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you,
And
guys.
got to get you back for a part 2. So thank you again for tuning in, and we will see you next time.